I just want to reiterate as well, any questions you've got, please put them in chat. Obviously, resellers have a lot of questions. This is a topic that will probably raise a lot of questions. We've got about 30 minutes to cover off in as much detail as possible in this sort of setup. But by all means, Wavelength's always here to answer additional questions after the webinar as well. So feel free to email us or to contact us if you want to get a little bit more in-depth information. So CTAP, Cyber Threat Assessment Program by Fortinet, but also by some of the other vendors as well. So this is an assessment report that can be done by quite a number of the different vendors, but today we're going to focus on the Fortinet specific CTAP program. So what is CTAP? It's a tool that Fortinet partners have available to be able to produce a security assessment report based on 3 key areas of their network. So when you say CTAP, there's 3 types of CTAP. You can run one of them or all 3 of them. So essentially what we're going to be looking at in a CTAP report is just the security effectiveness of the current equipment used, or maybe there's no equipment at all, there's security equipment in the network. And it can also cover off on email as well. So it will look at the utilization of the bandwidth you've got coming into your site, or perhaps the actual security infrastructure you've got as well. So can it cope with future growth? So it will give you some statistics of productivity items, or the presence of shadow IT or perhaps unproductive chat applets, such as WhatsApp installed on the desktop, or the Steam sort of store installed on the computer as well in your network. And it's achieved by using a specifically configured Fortinet FortiGate router, and you ship it to the prospect site, as you can see there on the right-hand diagram. And then their current router that's in place will mirror traffic to this CTAP FortiGate. Then that CTAP device will then communicate with a Fortinet FortiAnalyzer. In this case, it's the Wavelength one in our data center in Melbourne. So it is all kept within Australia, and it will actually then send the report logs to that FortiAnalyzer, which will then output one of the 3 or all 3 or even some bonus reports from the FortiAnalyzer. So the exact steps of the program, if you wanted to participate in a CTAP, which we'll explain later on why you should definitely participate in running a CTAP, is this. You position the actual assessment itself, which will give you some tips on how to do that. And then you say that you'll be getting a takeaway report, but the prospect will need to do a couple of steps themselves. So what we're going to be looking for when we do that CTAP is their current equipment performing? Is it misconfigured? What's basically the overall utilization? They're sort of the 3 key outcomes you can normally position the takeaway report to show them. Then you can charge for the assessment if you like. For Wavelength, we give it complimentary to our partners, but because there's going to be some effort on both the resellers half as well as on the Fortinet equipment doing a lot of assessment gathering, you may want to charge for this assessment because, as we've discussed in later slides, it's not a case of where here's a report, thanks very much. You will need to sit down and actually interpret the results with the prospect. So you might want to consider charging for the assessment and then waive that fee if they purchase some Fortinet products. But again, from Wavelength to the reseller, there is no charge. We do a complimentary at the moment. So then the third step is you actually begin the intelligence gathering. So when I say intelligence gathering, when we're actually looking at doing a CTAP, this is also about getting a holistic view of your prospect. So when we actually send through the link, this is exactly what the link will look like, which is the questionnaire they'll fill out. So as you can see, it'll ask them for their site details, and some of the additional questions it'll start to ask them is, how many sites do you have linked to the primary network? How many staff are at this site? What's the internet link bandwidth? What's the majority of the work done in your network? So what you're doing is you're not just sort of saying, yeah, we're going to stick a box in and magic it's going to produce a report. We're actually doing intelligence gathering to look at holistically what their network's looking like. Just having a report in place and looking through the statistics often isn't enough to actually do a worthwhile analysis, which is again why we speak about charging for the assessment, because if we look through sort of all the information and all the data, including what type of work they do and what more exists in the network, it's going to help both Wavelength help you interpret and you yourself talk to that customer about exactly what's going on with those 3 areas, you know, their utilization, their performance, and their security. So once the CTAP FortiGate is shipped to site, there will be some work to get the port mirroring set up on the existing router You might potentially want to send one of your techs, or the prospect can actually just follow the quick guide that's there, and they can set up the FortiGate on site and then use their existing router to do the port mirroring. But some of the businesses you might be dealing with might not have on-site IT, so you might have to do the final setup of the FortiGate at the client site. After that, the client router will then begin to send the telemetry via port mirroring for about 3 to 5 days to the FortiGate CTAP that's on site. And then that will then be VPN'd back over to the FortiAnalyzer in the Melbourne data center of its Wavelengths FortiAnalyzer. The assessment report will then be outputted. And then with that assessment report, basically you can review it with us, which we strongly recommend, or you might use your internal pre-sales or tech team to go through the report. Then once you, the security sales representative, is ready to go back to that prospect with the report, you should block about 30 minutes to 40 minutes with them in a meeting and have the key people in the room, whether that's the technical key personnel or the business key personnel, and then review the report's outcomes. And you know, we're going through in the next couple of slides about what potentially that could show, and it could potentially show that there are no security risks. So we'll go through some of those scenarios in a second. So what I want to do is give you just a little bit more information on the 3 types of CTAPs. So there's Nextgen Firewall, email, and SD-WAN. They're all sort of similar. A lot of them output the same statistics, which is why you can run all 3. But what you might want to do is when you give the report to your prospect is really drill down on exactly what they're looking for. So I've got sort of 3 more slides here that go through what the outcomes are for Nextgen Firewall. So as you can see there, it's about displacing the current firewall that's in place. There's some statistics around why you might be looking to assess your current firewall that's in place or the configuration of the firewall in place. And then the outcome is just really to understand the threats. But what I really want to do is actually just show you what that report looks like, because I think it's summed up best in the executive summary. So this is an example of what the report will output. And it will basically give them a summary here and say, look, you've got 11,000 vulnerabilities on your network. So as you guys know, in FortiSpeak, a vulnerability is a piece of software that's not currently patched. And when software is not patched on your network, there's potentially a vulnerability there where if a malicious bad actor gets on your network, they might exploit that vulnerability in your Java or in your TeamViewer or perhaps even on your WhatsApp desktop. This will also show you as well the number of total applications it's detected, and it'll give you a list, any proxies as well. And then down here, it'll give you the percentage of SSL encrypted traffic, which is, as you guys know, that the move over to SSL is very, very important in terms of secure traffic as well. So with those example reports, I'll show you how to get a hold of them. So let's quickly move over to the CTAP for email. Now, this one is really important because if you've got a user that has a lot of email coming through, or email addresses that have been around for maybe 20 years, you'll probably find that running a CTAP on their email, if they're just using maybe Office 365 or a mail server, they might be slightly shocked at what's getting through. Probably a lot of the things are sitting in the junk mail, but every now and then something will slip through because you've got things like phishing links, you've got actual PDFs or XEs that are going through on the email that are malicious as well. And then also overall, what it is you've got the bandwidth that's pushing through on their mail server. I mean, if they're talking about backing up their mail server, but they're actually backing up a lot of spam or a lot of junk, that's probably not best for everyone because it's going to increase their BCRS costs as well as slow down their actual backup because they're actually just backing up spam and malware. So the outcome essentially of a CTAP for email is to look for their ransomware, phishing, email fraud, and just other threats through the email. Again, the report looks the same with a summary page here, and it will tell you known or suspected attachment-based attacks, URL attacks, and then impersonation-based threats as well. Okay, how many of your email is actually flagged as spam? Now, if someone's got an email address which might be sales@coolcompany.com.au, really the best way to stop the spam is to make it so, you know, sales1@coolcompany.com.au. That's not really going to be an option for a lot of companies. So you need to look at making sure you've got a robust filtering system in place. So of the 415,000 spam emails coming through to sales most of them will just end up not hitting the mailbox and actually just get dropped, and which the FortiMail product is capable of doing. So the final one, which is obviously the hot topic at the moment, SD-WAN, you've got here, it's essentially like the Nextgen Firewall report, but it goes into a bit more detail about the actual network and when your peak times are. And what this is going to show is applications that need direct internet access and applications that need to go through, say, MPLS. What it'll also show you as well is your current bandwidth coming in, is your router being a tourniquet for that, or are your machines on the network capable of a lot more? So this is a really good way to evaluate the behavior of applications on your network, whether they need direct internet access, whether they're critical, if your router is going to have the ability to process the amount of traffic that your bandwidth is capable of doing, and also what needs to go on MPLS. And again, sample report. So 143 external or direct internet access applications. And then you've got 5% is VoIP traffic. And then you've got 22%, which is cloud SaaS-based IT traffic. So 23% of the traffic going through on that network was just non-business related. And you can tag the SD-WAN report will basically use these categories like general interest, or is it a software update, or is it collaboration software? And then it'll start to break down from there. You know, whether it determines it's productive or non-productive traffic. So you can see here TeamViewer is using 1 meg, log me in. It's interesting that they've got 2 types. Anyway, so I get lost in the data sometimes. So that's a good example of those 3 types of CTAPs. And let's get to the real talk, which is how do I start a CTAP conversation with my prospects? And why would they even care? So why should you do it? Now, for a prospect, an assessment allows them to see if there's any current security holes on the network, because you don't know what you don't know. And getting a second opinion is really not a bad thing, especially if it's going to be a nominal fee, like $495, or if you're going to offer it for free if you want, or you can say that, you know, if you get the report and then purchase something, we can waive the fee. There's a couple of things you can have that conversation with them around in terms of making it low effort for them. The other thing is if they're interested in Fortinet, but they're not actually sure about, you know, what's Fortinet capable of. I've read a lot about FortiGate. I've heard about this FortiAnalyzer. You know, how good really is the FortiGuard Labs security service? Well, you can run a CTAP as almost like a sample on site for some of the Fortinet equipment. And also as well, with the SD-WAN report, as we just saw, it's really going to see whether you can cope with demand. So if there really is a big push internally to direct internet access software or SaaS software, a lot of departments like HR, departments like this, not necessarily the sales team, unfortunately, but more like HR and operations and the projects team, they'll start to sign up for SaaS stuff like Monday.com, or maybe they're using Wix, or maybe they've signed up for some sort of YouTube premium service or something like that to do with their particular department. And you as the IT or you as someone like the accountant internally is sort of going, what's my actual bandwidth? Can I cope with future requirements? So that's another reason why doing those types of reports, and especially around email as well, is my email server going to cark it because it's getting quite full? What are we backing up on our PCRS? This is all stuff that the reports can show you. So my opinion is, and I hope a lot of you agree, that's a lot of those are pretty compelling, just to at least get the report and have a discussion with you as the reseller and to show them that there's some good value in running one of these. So for the sellers, I mean, as you can see, you can get an intelligence report of your prospect, even if it's an existing customer that maybe you only do business with every 6 months or once a year. Running a CTAP on an existing customer might be good for you to basically go, you know what? Are we going to be ready to, should we be looking at upping the bandwidth? You know, is the current router in place? Should we replace? Should we start to pitch to them saying, you know, maybe this surface one in place is maybe not the best one to have because it's letting security vulnerabilities through. We need to look at getting budget for them to move to a FortiGate because it's just the existing router in place is letting too much through. There's a case here to put budget aside to upgrade. You can position yourself then as a security reseller. Maybe you come from that tradition of doing infrastructure, so you're a switching router SMB specialist reseller and you want to get more into security. Well, a CTAP will really start to bolster you up and say, you know what, I know you used to deal with us for switching and wireless, but we want to start talking security. And these types of tools can give you the credibility to sit at the table as a security reseller. And then you can also provide, as you saw with the stats that come through on these reports, they're detailed. You've got statistics that are there, okay? These are all the stats, all the lists. They can go and cross-check this with their existing supplier, with their existing reseller, but the data is there. And often the answer's in the data and the truth is in the data as well. So those statistics are going to help provide evidence for you so that it's not just sort of hearsay or, you're acting as a consultant who says, well, in my opinion, this. You've got data to back you up with a CTAP. Okay, so one of the main things is when you're speaking to these customers, you can't just sort of be a little, when it comes to security, you've got to be a bit careful about how casual you come across with security because you want to have a sense of urgency, but you also don't want to be like, oh, it's the boogeyman. So you've got to have a good balance when you're speaking security. So some good ways to phrase some of the call to actions is, do you have visibility to make informed decisions? Do you feel like you have control over your network? What are your corporate use policies and how do you enforce them? How do you assess the effectiveness of the existing solution? How long has it been since your last refresh cycle for this product? From a capacity planning standpoint, can your current solution keep up with the speed of your business? Are you having challenges getting security budget allocated? And when you brief the executive staff, do you feel like they have all the metrics that they are looking for? So the other thing you should do is, as I say in my 40 selling session and in my other sessions as well, is you should educate yourself around cyber.gov.au, which is part of the Australian Cybersecurity Centre, and learn there about some of the security lingo, some of the security questions they ask there. And you should read the Verizon Data Breach Investigations report, because that'll show you statistics and real examples globally about some of the actual malware and security outbreaks that businesses are facing. So understanding the cybersecurity risk to businesses, which those types of questions really do get people thinking about, those types of websites help you educate yourself on. That means, again, when you sit down and have that conversation and position yourself as a security reseller, you've got some weight and some professional sort of approach to security. Sort of just going in and being like, there's that bandwidth, it's too slow, mate. It's just too slow. It's not going to, you have to come across it in a particular way. Otherwise, they might just think you're just trying to bolt on more stuff to the network, or you're trying to just basically sell them more crap, which you're not. You're trying to come at it from a holistic point of view. So what if the report shows complicated security risk data and I get asked some hard questions in the meeting? So this is something that comes up. BDMs, account managers, a lot of the frontline sales reps, they've got a lot they're dealing with. Security is something that comes up, and it's a good topic to talk about. It's something that gets people's attention. It's enough to open up discussion with a lot of people within the business. But what happens if you get asked something complicated and you bring the report? So if it's a tricky topic, just don't fake it. And the reason I say don't fake it is I go to a lot of end user meetings and I can see what it's like when someone who's not necessarily experienced risk security or with complexities as to why a report is showing a certain utilization. So Wavelength will sit and do an interpretation of the report with you. But if the report's particularly complicated or if it's showing quite a lot of very intricate statistics, what we suggest is you sit with the business influencer or you sit with the technical influencer and bring someone with you. Bring someone who's at least experienced or certified, preferably, with you, and bring them along to the meeting. Or when you're answering the questions with the people, they just say, look, I don't know the answer to this specifically, but what we'll do is I'm going to write this down. I want to be sure that I'm going to get the right answer for you, and we're going to come back and make sure we got these answers for you. So don't fake it till you make it, because it's essentially, I would make it equivalent to, someone who's not a specialist in maybe ear, nose, and throat, and then you go into that GP and you say, look, my throat hurts and there's a red rash in there and it's bleeding, and the doctor's like, look, I've sort of this and this and that. Just go to the specialist. Go to the specialist when it's particularly complicated. But yeah, when talking with business influencers, make sure that representative for the businesses, everyone's there. So you want to speed up the actual sales cycle, make sure the influencers are there. This is all sales 101 stuff, as you guys know. And they should be able to easily understand the value. So if you do bring that experienced person with you or that expert with you, have a conversation with them and say, look, don't spray them with information they're not going to understand. These are business influencers in the room. But if there's technical influences in the room, you can go into that deep dive around, why is it showing logme in? Why is it showing TeamViewer? What does that mean? I don't have them installed on the network. How is that possible? We'll deep dive with them, because it's likely those technical influences have probably wanted a budget, and you're there, you're on their side. Okay, so you're for them, and that you just got to make sure that when you go into that meeting, it doesn't turn into an attack on one another or an argument. You're both there for the same reason, which is to secure the network. Okay, you're trying to use the CTAP report to reinforce and validate their experience on the network. Things are too slow, or it feels like I don't have control of my network, or I'm having a hard time enforcing that the marketing team actually don't install WhatsApp on their computers. I don't care if they use it to talk to our customers. It's not safe. It's not secure. We're getting data leakage through it, as an example. That's based on a real example. So what if the report shows there is no security risk at all? Now, this is a question that comes up, and it's a tricky one to answer because, you go in, you tell them, okay, we're gonna find something. There's going to be something there. Well, the reality is that you are going to find something. You might not find what these reports are showing in the sample reports. You might not show 11,000 vulnerabilities, or you might not find that there are 17 high-risk applications. Or maybe on the SD-WAN, you might not necessarily find that there are 143. So what happens if what you find is, reasonably tame and reasonably, manageable, and there really isn't a reason there for them to take immediate action on some of the findings? Well, everyone knows when it comes to sales, if you miss 100% of the shots, you don't take, and also as well, sometimes you've got to knock early and keep knocking, and you've got to make sure they're there. So this is, again, leading back to what we were saying earlier. It's about positioning yourself, about being a different type of sales rep, or a different type of consultant, a different type of reseller, someone who's concerned around, their network, concerned around wanting to know more and get stats to back yourself up. Instead of just guessing something and hoping that you guessed it right, you're being methodical. And with IT now and the complexities of IT, that'll actually ring true with them, to see that you're methodical, you're detailed, you have evidence to back up what you're saying. But if all lights are green, it's still a good way to test the effectiveness of the existing solution in place. It's like getting a second opinion from a doctor. If you run an assessment and if it actually shows on there that everything's running really well, you can tell them, don't become complacent. Okay, maybe look, everything's good so far. We've got to keep going, okay? Because the cyber crims, the bad actors out there, they're always evolving. So you've got to make sure you just don't become complacent. So showing everything's doing good so far is good, and that they shouldn't give up. They should keep going. They should keep budgeting. They should keep planning around cybersecurity. And also, assessments are only designed to take less than 30 minutes of your prospect's time. So this goes back to what we said earlier, which is that, the heavy lifting is done by you, the reseller, and by us, by Wavelength. So it's a small investment to get those type of stats that we were talking about before. So why not? Okay, I mean, the best way to do it is if you've done the report, it shows everything's great. Well, it's 30 minutes of everyone's of your prospect's time, maybe 2 hours of your reseller time, but everyone's got the data now. So everyone comes away with something. It wasn't, a waste of time. So what are the additional steps you can take? Well, you can go through the training tutorials and really educate yourself in detail on CTAP. The material we're going through here is Fortinet material. So all of this is in the Fortinet CTAP portals, which I'll show you the links on the next slide. Practice running assessments, whether in your sales team or in your lab environment. I really encourage that at least after this meeting, the first thing a lot of the partners here should do, they should just run a CTAP in their own network. So maybe you might not have a prospect there, but run a CTAP in your own network. Wavelength are happy to lend out the CTAP for internal use for 5 days, and just run it on your internal network. If you've got a FortiGate already, you can actually get it to send to our FortiAnalyzer. So we don't even need to ship a CTAP to you. You can still actually just send the reports to the FortiAnalyzer, and you could run it yourself. And then you can see the output from there. And then when you do marketing, throw the CTAP pitch on there as well, and be like, not sure whether security is for you, run a report with us, find out whether it is, everything we've just gone through. So put it in your marketing campaigns, put it in your email signature. And then finally as well, if you're finding that this is really something for you and you want to start building business practice around it, maybe procure your own CTAP FortiGate and CTAP FortiAnalyzer, whether it's cloud, VM, or hardware, and then really try to build it into your sales methodology for your sales team or your pre-sales team or your technical team, okay? You also get large discounts on that equipment if you buy it for CTAP purposes. So just remember, when we're doing Fortinet, there's 27 products, 4 form factors, all industries, all sizes, and we really want to look at that single vendor strategy. So again, when you do a CTAP, we're getting business intelligence around their entire network, which means that we can probably look out of all these products to fit something there. So there will most likely be the ability to suggest something from Fortinet. But as we're looking here around FortiMail, FortiGate, FortiClient when it comes to the CTAP, but then you've also got FortiExtender on there if you wanted to say do SD-WAN one as well, even from management and analyzer perspective. So as I said before, there's the CTAP portal, which is ctap.fortinet.com. When you go into this particular portal, so you use your login for the partner program. So it's the same login as the Fortinet partner program. And when you jump in here, you can press the help button. And this help button will give you the partner video. It'll give you the seller guide PDF. Then it'll give you more videos on actually how to run the report, how to interpret the report, sample reports, email pitch campaigns, worksheets as well. And that's for SD-WAN and email. Then you've got on the partner portal itself, if you need even more information than that, then on the partner portal, you've got 2 sections. You've got this CTAP section down here. And then you've got under assets on the right-hand side, which is my favorite section to hang out in the partner portal. You've got a specialized CTAP section in here as well. Come on, internet. Maybe I should run SD-WAN on my internet here. So here left, sales resource, CTAP assets, completely standalone section here. And you can basically drill down on here and you can grab your PDFs, you can grab all your sample reports all here. And then this is the actual CTAP's methodology training sort of section within the partner portal as well. So heaps and heaps of self-education stuff here, okay? So what's the difference? You know, and this is updated as well, and there's actionable recommendations all here. And of course, you can speak to Wavelink as a specialist. And we also got a marketing team that have some preset CTAP stuff as well. So we've got dedicated training staff. We can do separate CTAP sessions, give you a hand. We've got the support desk as well, which can give you a hand. Is essentially here in your toolkit, there's a lot of tools. It's a heavy toolkit bag. So it's basically all available there for you. So we've got, I've come in 2 minutes early, so we've actually got a little bit of extra time. So let's go through the questions that we've got in the list here. And we can give it on.
Awesome. So I've compiled the questions. Jaden, that presentation's amazing. I think this is probably one of the best ones we've done. Hopefully you guys can really see or take away some of the objection handling questions that we've covered off, the sales scenarios, to cut through those type of customer conversations. We've got a few questions to get through. Please drop any more you have into the questions box. You can private message me. So we have a few from Brendan Cooper at Tasmanet first and foremost. So his first question is the CTAP only for Office 365 or is there other email servers you can run it on as well?
Other email servers as well. The reason why it says Office 365 on there is it's because at the moment with FortiMail, you may or may not be aware, but they've got their Office 365 API integration, which they're really proud of. And also a lot of smaller businesses will be using just sort of the Office 365 built-in anti-spam. So there is, you know, they might get a lot of stuff that's held up by the anti-spam that's built and anti-malware built into Office 365, but there's actually a lot of phishing stuff that still goes through. So it's more that it's a focus for a target for FortiMail around Office 365 end users, but yes, you can use it to check an existing mail server as well.
Cool. Now you discussed it briefly at the beginning, very quickly around resellers and how they might frame this with customers. Are you finding reseller conversations that you're having? Are they charging for this service, or is this more of kind of a gateway in, and then hopefully build on that relationship and then charge them for services after the report has been done?
So you know, I've been in the industry for a while, but a lot of you resellers have been in the industry longer than me. A lot of the resellers are owners and workers as well, and they're techs as well. I'm not going to tell you guys how to run your business or how to charge your customers. Every customer is different, and I find with resellers, they know what their customers are going to do, and they know how to make their customers, you know, do certain things around IT. Because essentially, there's a lot of IT resellers, and there's a lot of customers. And the customers that don't want to spend money on IT, or they want to be a real Like when it comes to IT, a lot of resellers just go, you know what, there are other people out there who want our help. So I think when it comes, I can't answer that question. I think it's going to be a case of, you know, your market, and you know whether this is going to be relevant for them, and you know whether they're going to want to pay for it or not. And I think, which is why the examples I gave earlier, you might want to run it because there's benefit for both people involved. You might want to charge for it because you want to make sure there's some buy-in from the end user on it. Or you might want to charge for it because you want to do it as a deal where it says, if you buy something from us, we'll just waive this fee. Like I said, for Wavelink partners, we don't charge for it. We do the heavy lifting there free of charge. It's a complimentary service because we do genuinely like our partners and want to make sure that they've got everything at their fingertips. But for your end users, that's going to be up to you to interpret what you think. But the main thing is you've got options. If I told you it's $4,000, well, then you're like, well, that's half my customers I can't charge it for. You know, so then now you've got options about what you want to do around it. So I don't know the answer to that. And you know, you might want to talk to some other the resellers you might know and see, or just test and measure.
I think test and measure is a good one. Like obviously there is advantages to charge and get buy-in, like most things, but then to also have it as a value add to kind of build that relationship, set yourself up as the trusted advisor, and then go in with products and products and offerings on top of that, I guess. Jaden. The next question is from Brendan, is does the SD-WAN report show total bandwidth capacity and usage for each connection?
So utilization, total bandwidth used, 40.5 gigs. And then in terms of the breakdown here, internal versus external breakout, then we've got here business applications used, and then again, breakdown of what the applications are, malware, unknown malware, and then this one here, which is average bandwidth by hour, average log rate by hour. Okay, so this is at 5 a.m. They've got, for some reason, peak time. What the hell?
What are they doing at 5 a.m.?
It's probably their backup routine. But again, this is why you've got to sit and interpret these reports. If you just gave like the end user this report, they're like, "What the hell's happening on Thursdays at 4 p.m.?" You know what I mean? So this is.
I think it would be an error.
Well, you don't know. And that's the thing. It opens up that conversation. But it's also why you should consider charging, because it's not just chuck a report, get a sale. So you might actually have to do some investigation work on this as well. And then this is actually for capacity, the memory usage by hour as well. So there we go. Does that answer the question? I think it does.
I think it does. And Mick Edwards has just put in the chat as well that a great place to start with the CTAP is to generally run it internally and then to ask questions to the CEO, CTO, CISO about what's important and why they're sitting. So still, you're then trying to get, I guess, interest and confirmation from multiple factors of the business. And I guess then in turn, they're seeing the value of the report, and then hopefully, obviously, your service offering on top of that. Thank you very much for the input, Mick. Always welcome. Last question from Brendan, and this is more of a, I guess you can say, an industry-wide question. Is a CTAP something specifically offered by Fortinet, or are security vendors doing this normally as well?
So the answer is no, and as I said at the start, this is something that a lot of them do. One of the other vendors, Palo Alto, will actually mean you have to buy your CTAP device, and the support that they give you is maybe a little bit. So Fortinet actually run this program. That's what the CTAP portal is here. This CTAP portal is actually designed where you buy a FortiGate, you allocate that to be your CTAP one, and then you can do everything here from their portal, okay? So it will link to their FortiAnalyzer, and that FortiAnalyzer, which is over in the US, will then output the report, and this gives you like a mini CRM. Now, the reason why Wavelink do this on behalf of Fortinet here is, as you guys know, there's some rules around where information goes and where information is stored. So just making sure that everything is compliant with PCI, with ISO, and just making sure that no one has any questions around where's my data actually stored. We run it through our FortiAnalyzer, which means that you don't do it through this portal, but the Fortinet CTAP is quite in depth, and as you can see, all the material they've got available, this specialized dashboard which will show you the report types, you can go back in, it's all sort of integrated here. Fortinet takes CTAP really seriously because they think it's a great tool, and I hope after my explanation you also think it's a great tool as well, but it's not unique to Fortinet. I just my personal opinion is that Fortinet do a really good job of it, of something that is already existing in the market. I think they do a really good job for their partners for it. So if you do happen to sell other security vendors and they've got a similar thing, maybe compare them. See if it is apples and apples, or see if it's apples and oranges. Yeah, I'm going to go oranges. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And then one final question from Mel Holmes. 30 minutes to do the assessment, which is great, but how long does it take to actually generate the report?
So it's depending on the log size, I think it's maybe on average 5 to 6 minutes. So you got to remember, it's collating all the data, sending it to FortiAnalyzer, and then it's outputting the report. So the actual generation of the report is very, very, very quick, because it's essentially just taking a log dump. It's just a large amount of data that's then outputted into these templates. It's really quick.
Awesome. Well, there's no other questions.
Yeah, I've got 2 more here, so I will. Yep. So I'll just have, because we've got a little bit of time, and then we can finish up early. So I've got here a message from Prasad, and Prasad has actually said here that I really like feedback like this, because it's really important to know what's happening in the field. So Prasad has actually said that they did a CTAP report. It said no threats, but they still went ahead and they got the Fortinet equipment to upgrade their existing one, because they liked, again, that focus on security, what the report was able to show them. So even though they didn't have any risk there at the moment, they knew that this was a vendor they want to get behind and move forward with, because again, it's about not becoming complacent. So that's a great example there. So thank you very much for that. And then I've been asked by Carol here, which is why we aren't using Fortinet's CTAP portal. And again, as I explained just before, it's mainly around privacy concerns and making sure the data stays within Australia. So a lot of people will ask, because you're sending a device to site, they say, where's this information going? So to make sure that there's no sort of, hey, where's my information residing? Is this going to mean that there's a breach for me because we have to be compliant for ISO? Everything goes to our ISO compliant data center in Melbourne, so all the information stays within Australia. So I hope that answers your question, Carol.
Cool.
Because if you use the CTAP portal, I'm pretty sure it goes back to America. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Another question from me. Is there any more that's been communicated to you, Jaden?
No, I went through the effort of making this slide deck, so I'm just going to show this slide. So just
self-promotion.
Yeah, so just a reminder, when it comes to Wavelength, we've got Northern and Southern region account managers. We've got a full pre-sales team, so you've probably worked with the likes of some of the faces here. Then you've got, as well, don't forget, we've got our support technicians, we've got the marketing team, we've got our technical trainers, and we're obviously got our regional account managers with Fortinet, who always give us a hand and are always happy to help and to get us additional PDFs and to help with deal reg and CTAP information as well. So, yep, this has been, a Fortinet info bite, and we've got more of them coming up. And if you want more information, please just message us. We're always here to help. That's what we're here for.
Cool. And just a shout out, we do have the Fortinet WA and South Australia team, Nicole in WA and Michael Phillips in South Australia, that unfortunately was left off that last slide, but we will add them in. Mick, sorry for that. Guys, on that, thank you very much for joining. This is probably one of the best sessions we've run. So Jaden, thank you very much for developing this content. We hope each and every one of you can walk away with this with at least one bit of information that you can go out and start talking to your customers to CTAPs about. If you need any information or you'd like personal one-to-one sessions with your team, with Jaden and with the Wavelength team on CTAPs, please reach out to Jaden, to myself, or to your channel account manager as well. Thank you very much for joining, and we'll hopefully see you at the next event.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.